You can see the results of this credit out there. It's not there for people to abuse. It's not super up, so they know it's so I'll turn this over to Mel Andringa, and as Amanda said, he's the co-director of Legion Arts.
Thanks, Em.
Yes, sorry. We have some pictures of that one as well.
Okay. Well, CSPS is actually kind of qualified. It's listed on the National Register, and it was mostly for cultural reasons, not for architectural reasons, and they're a famous architect. This is a picture of the building as it was originally built in 1890, and then there were two additions to it. Actually, this is where the building stopped originally, and they added this on, and then they also added the stage on early in the 20th century. And those two additions were added to it, and it was always retail on the first floor and a cultural hall on the cultural hall on the second floor. This is the state of the building when we started our project. This is this is before we started our project. This is the state of the building in about 2007, before the flood. So considerable changes have happened to the building. If you go back to that other one, you notice that little peak is going on the top of the building. There were chimneys that are gone. You notice that how the windows are down on the first floor, and then notice how the windows have been turreted down, sort of tank-like windows in it at this point. And and then also notice that the glass block windows on the whole second floor. A lot of these are just plywood panels on the upper halves of those windows. So there was a lot of rehabilitation to be done in the building, but fortunately there was also a great amount of resources still left in the building. That is, until the flood took out 10.5 feet of everything on the first floor. So everything on the first floor is basically new materials. There's some tin ceilings that were at 14 feet on the first floor that we were able to retain, but floors and many other parts of it left with the building. We worked with Solon Lang Architect as the architect. We had the good fortune of that Brad Lang, who was the principal architect, his mother had been a secretary of the business downstairs, and so he knew it from when he was a child. He had a great affection for the building. It meant something to him. They came up with a plan which, if you are an architect, is a very thankless job to do a historic building, because you basically are your limitations on what you can do as your signature elements and that sort of thing are not great. You've got to bring it back to where it was, not push it forward to what it can be. On the other hand, we're a contemporary art center up on the second floor. We're about to become the owners of the building, and we needed certain facilities to present art in the 21st century. So Brad came up with some interesting solutions that we are really grateful to him to do. The project was done by Ryan Companies, and they were also the project manager. We were a very small organization. We had three-quarter-time staff, and a total annual operating budget of about $250,000, of which about $175,000 a year went out the door the same day it come in. That's because we would pay our artists to do their shows, and then they take that money with it. So we were operating on a much smaller than $250,000 budget. And this is the facade again, the way it was. This is the way it is now. So you'll notice certain things. All this remodeling was taken away. The windows were replaced back to their original way, and the pediment was done to the peak the way it was originally. Now, originally, this was an open archway. It had been glassed in the 50s sometime, but it wasn't practical, and issues and so forth wouldn't let us do that. Originally there were 23 steps up to the second floor, and they had a set of doorways halfway up those stairs, and that's not something the code would ever allow. So glassing in that bottom was still possible. So I guess the lesson there is that SHPO and these historic tax credits are, they're not unreasonable. They are willing to look at what is necessary to do in order to make your building function. They're not going to hold you to an absolute standard of making it back to the 1890s and having outhouses and whatever. This is the side of the building, and the whole building had been painted sometime before 1929, painted white with green trim, so the brick had all been done there. And then later on, the landlord had sandblasted back to here, and on the front of the building, that would have been a total no-no if we had tried to do that, and we had to use the least invasive form of rehabilitation. So that's something to really be sure that not only is your plan to do the things, have it look right when you're done, but that you are using the right techniques and materials in order to make it acceptable to the state society. This is the new sides of the building, which have been. There were some chemicals used on them, but they also used instead of sandblasting, a pressurized walnut shells, crushed walnut shells to do the least amount of damage to the exterior when that was necessary. That's the original back of the building, and that's the new back. And you notice we left things like that faint painted sign on the back. We could have taken that off, but we also had a feeling of preserving what we could of the history of it. The whole building had to be re-tuck pointed, and this is the side elevation this is an interior elevation, kind of in the alleyway behind the firehouse there. And although this wasn't a historical facade, the 3rd Street facade and the 3rd Avenue were historical streets size. This was, we did our best to preserve this one as well. And Brad put our one addition to the building on this side of the building. So you see it's here it's a small box at the back of there. Now there were all kinds of reasons to do that. The main one has to do with those tax credits. Because every dollar you put into that addition is a dollar. Every dollar you put into that big building is a 50-cent dollar. It's 50 cents for real money, it's 50 cents for the state historic tax credits, and 50 cents for the federal historic tax credits. So you made that footprint as small as you could for an addition. And then additionally, because they don't want big additions that aren't in keeping with the original building, but it's new brick, and they want to see that it's new brick. They don't want you to try to make it look like it was always part of the building. And you notice this little glass line here? That was very intentional to kind of create a separation between the original building and the addition, so that you saw that's CSPS.